supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Thoughts and Coffee from Let's Talk Supply Chain. Today, we've got Emerge is proud to partner with Thoughts and Coffee to elevate our combined focus on empowering and growing meaningful relationships in the freight industry, and the first and only freight-specific RFP platform. Emerge is reinventing freight procurement by offering solutions that enhance the spot and contract procurement process, enabling shippers to make the most strategic decisions possible, saving invaluable time and enhancing productivity. You can learn more at emergemarket.com/thoughtsandcoffee. I'm excited to be here today. I've got a special guest. One of Sarah, my trade besties, is going to be joining us shortly. But first, we're going to kind of look at what's coming up in the Let's Talk supply chain world. So good morning, Davin. Good morning, Melanie. So our upcoming events are obviously Thoughts and Coffee today. And then on Friday, June 10th at 10 a.m. Eastern, we've got action items with DC Sfrigola. So she's looking at understanding real readiness for Excel graduation. And if you know DC, you know it's all about taking it digital and what that landscape is going to look like for you. We've got the June 15th, we've got a sort of an event, Perfect Your Back to School Strategy with End-to-End Ocean Visibility. And that's a webinar with 4 kites. So you're not going to want to miss that one. In July, looking at the end of July, we've got the Intelligent Automation Week in Chicago. So that's at the Chicago Marriott downtown. So it sounds like that's a large kind of conference event. And then, of course, we've got in September, Supply Chain Insights Global Summit is coming up. We also want to watch, if you missed on Friday, June 3rd, we had Eric Johnson, of course, our senior technology editor, is talking about how you can compete with Amazon. And I started listening to that one last night because I had missed it also on Friday. And he's talking with Miles Varghese, sort of from Cargo Logic. And it's all about improving your customer relationships through technology, which is such a great conversation between two really knowledgeable people in this industry. What else do I want to tell you about? We've got, Imagine. We've got, that's that conference in September 6th to 8th. So that's, I think it's inspired by Laura Cesari, so who's a really knowledgeable person in our supply chain field. If you're not, sort of checking her out, you definitely want to. And then I know we've got, I think that's it for events, but I know we've got our Women in Supply Chain, the latest podcast, episode 270. So Women in Supply Chain podcast with Sneha Kumari, who's my birthday twin. I found out sort of earlier this year when we met up in Los Angeles. So it's an episode that's, you're going to talk with her. She's the supply chain program manager at Amazon. So, a tiny place that you might want to learn about. And she's got, significant certification and experience, kind of leading these quality supply chain operational programs. She's recognized as an operation leader by McKinsey & Company, which is kind of a rare thing to do. And she's lovely and interesting. And so it's an episode that you're absolutely not going to want to miss. So yeah. That is our episode. Oh, I see a couple of people jumping in this morning. So LinkedIn was giving us a little bit of a hard time with Sarah's personal page. So I don't know if, I don't think we have her Thoughts and Coffee post for this week, unfortunately. So what I might do instead is I'm going to, good morning, Michelle. I'm going to bring up Emiliano to the deck, and then we'll kind of chat a little bit about what's going on in his world and sort of in the world of sort of supply chain education, and then we'll jump into our articles. So yeah. Good. Hi, Emiliano. Welcome.
Hello, how's everybody?
Good. Good. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're based. I forgot to, actually, I should introduce myself because I forgot. So we'll do that, and then I'll introduce you. That's what it's like live hosting a show. Okay, so I'm Audrey Ross. I'm based in Toronto. I'm an import and export compliance manager at Orchard Custom Beauty. Orchard is a private labeling business to business company that specializes in cosmetics, beauty tools, and bath accessories. And then let's introduce you, and then we'll tell everyone how we know each other.
I always do the same thing on my first courses. In my first class, I talk for like 30 minutes and I'm like, oh, I don't think I introduced myself. So so my name is Emiliano Introcaso. I work for Export Development Canada, and I also teach supply chain management at the colleges here in Toronto. That's where I'm based. And I've been in the industry for more than 20 years now. So it's been a heck of a journey to see all the things that have changed with supply chain, with international business, international trade. So always happy to be here with you, Audrey, and saying hello to Sarah, that she probably is watching us at some point.
Yeah, you know, somewhere on her trip back from Europe, she'll catch up on what we're all doing. Okay, so what did I want to? I just forgot, of course. Okay, so we've introduced ourselves. Everybody knows who we are. So how we met was through a program. There's an association called the Forum for International Trade Training. And that's where I met Sarah. That's where I met you, where I met Claricia, who I spent the weekend with in Ottawa. So it's kind of a training program for international trade, and there's a designation associated with it called the Certified International Trade Professional Designation. And so I think we met, like they were doing a series of sort of meetups. And so we met at sort of a local meetup, and then we've kind of been chums ever since.
Yeah, it was through, I think we were in downtown Toronto. We had a meeting with a bunch of people. It was like 50 people, maybe, I think. And then, we used to do those in the past before COVID. Actually, prior to COVID. So it was a long time ago. But we've been chatting all the time. And it's funny because you meet a lot of people, you know, online. And they're like, oh, I know you. I'm like, yeah. And then it's like, they follow your post, or like, you know, they see you chiming in or doing comments. So I always say, like, you know, anytime that you're commenting on someone else's post, or you know, you're following a particular topic you like, you never know. This industry is so small. I think you know, we had people that were a student of mine that worked with Audrey, and I've been dealing with companies, and then I realized, oh my God, like that person that is contacting me is a student that, you know, from 5 years ago. So the actual industry is very, very very small.
Yeah, and it's true, because there are certain people. I mean, there's maybe a lot of people working in it, but I think the sphere of who kind of talks about it and who's on social and who's really passionate about it, I think that the connections become very, very, very close knit. So which is interesting, like, because you get to meet all these people, and then you realize you're like, oh, and you know so and so, oh, and you know, and you've worked on this. And then when I think there's an opportunity, it's like it's that next level kind of networking, where it's not just, oh, I've handed you my business card. And I think this for your students too. It's like they expect, like, networking is like, oh, I hand out business cards, or I get a mentor, and it's sort of not clear what that might mean, right? Or what the work that goes into it is. And I think it's a long-term building of relationships, supporting people in the industry, and then, you know, engaging with their social. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm working on this project. I should talk to so-and-so because they're out in the West Coast and they might know this other person. And those connections become really invaluable.
Yes, and especially when you're, you know, embedded with some of the industry associations, right? So if you go to events or just, you know, being just a member of an association, I think that already by default kind of gets you in the industry. Yes. So for those of you who are not members of an association in supply chain. If you're a student, you can get a discount. If you're not a student, just pay up a little bit, and then you start getting into those networks, because that's what sometimes gets you the job or the favors that you need. Favors is the most important one.
That's do you know somebody who can move a container from this place to this place at a better price than I'm paying? That'd be great.
Exactly.
And it's true though. It's like, it's automatic. I think that, with Fit, it's so automatic. Like I'll see a new person on LinkedIn who I'm not connected to, but somebody, and it's like, you just automatically write to them. You're like, I'm a CITP too. Let's, and they're like, oh, that's so exciting. And like, everybody's just happy to connect and meet, and yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, and it's also nice to read their stories too, right? Because when you look at like how they came about into supply chain, I think that's always a really good way of knowing. Myself, when I came into supply chain, I had no clue about anything, and the only reason the company had hired me was because I spoke Spanish. I mean, still speak Spanish, but they wanted somebody like doing customer service rep for the Mexican accounts and all the Latin American accounts. And the funny part was that all the customers wanted to speak was in English. So I'm thinking to my boss, like, why did you hire me? They all want to speak English. And it's like, oh no, we know. But anyway, and I ended up like, learning on the go. And then it's like, okay, I really need to understand what everything means. So I started taking courses, and those were the Fit courses that you also took, Audrey. So we could solidify our knowledge and really get to do it the right way. Because sometimes we do things, that are not the regular proper way. And then when you learn like, oops, I did these mistakes, right? So try to rectify those.
And hopefully you figured out, like, there's been some things that we were doing that I learned were like, oh, that's not the right way to do it. And thank goodness I figured out before it was like customs was telling me it's the wrong way to do it. Now I have to pay a fine. Like, there's little ways you grow your knowledge. You're like, sometimes it's like you see a webinar and someone's like, oh, you're actually supposed to do it this way. And you're like, oh, I got to go and fix all of this stuff. But it's good sometimes you pick it up before it's actually a problem.
Yeah, we have to be very thankful to customs programs that allow us to be in compliance, and whenever you're bringing the problems, they're very happy to help you and fix them and all that. So kudos to customs if you're watching.
Exactly. So we've got our articles coming up, but let's jump into every week. Let's Talk Supply Chain does a poll. So I'll ask you the question as well, and we can look at some of the comments that are here. But the question is, which came first, the chicken or the egg? So that's thanks to Emerge for this LinkedIn poll, but it's sort of the age-old question that everyone sort of seems to disagree on. So what's your take? And then we'll look at some comments.
I have to say the chicken. But maybe people are gonna say the egg. So it's just like this is like a never-ending, poll. I will say we have to move to a different poll now.
Yeah.
I think you need that chicken, right? You need that first chicken to have that first egg, and then life goes on.
I think one of my favorite comments is from Peter Foley, who's a longtime viewer of this show, a good friend, is clearly the egg, but it was a hybrid between a mastodon and a pterodactyl, which resulted in an evolutionary shift, and voila, the chicken.
I like that idea too.
And then he references how they became the brunt of many "why did it cross the road" jokes. So I think that takes us into a little bit of history there, and a little bit of. So I went with the egg, though. I don't know why. Maybe I was hungry at the time. I was just thinking of myself.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's jump into. Oh, I see Rhonda's here, and Heidi, sort of over on LinkedIn there, saying hello. Everyone can drop in what they think, chicken or egg, or they can drop in where they're from. That's always fun to see where everybody's sort of tuning in from. We've got a lot of guests from.
Scott there.
Is he there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of coming in. Okay, so what order did we start in with my articles here? Let's start with Gucci. This was an article on I think, yes, my friend AJ's brought it up here. So Gucci's opening a persistent digital space. So they're not using permanent now. They're not using I guess, because it's sort of meta, but we're using a persistent digital space. So on a platform called Roblox. And so this article kind of goes into, one, that they've done it, that they've launched it. So it's this Gucci Garden. Or Gucci Garden they'd done last year. About a year ago, they had opened up that little space, and I guess they'd closed it. And so now they've gone with a virtual sort of piazza, which sort of in Italy, I guess, is sort of a courtyard. And so it includes games, a creative corner, a vault plaza. So that's a shop that's selling digital Gucci items, sort of a place where community members can meet and interact. Users can earn in-experience currency called GG Gems, so that they can help with their purchases of virtual items. So Gucci Town is sort of an extension of this sort of brand's previous activations in the metaverse, and this whole larger concept of the store vault. And so I guess they're looking to sort of carve out this spot, and the article kind of goes into sort of what that means, what the abilities are. So not only these digital Gucci items, but you can outfit your Avies in Gucci clothes. And then apparently it's getting into a layered clothing technology, allowing for more realistic 3D garments. So that it's not just you've bought this shirt, it's like the shirt will actually be able to fit your Avi, your avatar body type. So it's sort of I guess, our next level of this, sort of metaverse interaction. So what do you think about? I'm still sort of outside of this.
I'm very outside of this, but I mean, I thought that this was a good marketing way of like having your brand in another.
Yeah.
I mean, Roblox is some sort of game, so having your brand out there, and I mean, I don't know if I will buy something like that. First of all, I don't play a lot of games, but like, you're buying like items to outfits your avatars and the little, human games that you use there. But like, for me, it was like, okay, me being in supply chain, I see that type of stuff. It's like, okay, how do we benefit in the supply chain industry with that? And it's like, unless you're shipping the garments, right, that you're buying. So let's say you're buying this digital one for your avatar, and then you get the same one to you, shipped, and delivered to you in person or in through supply chain methods, and then you actually have the actual garment yourself. That to me makes sense. But just to outfit, avatars. I mean, maybe there's people that are into that, and that's fine. But to me, it's like, okay, how do we benefit in supply chain with this type of technology? And the only thing I could say is like, okay, so it's sort of like you're getting the users of the game playing and seeing your brand, and eventually they will still buy from your stores, and supply chain is still going to be part of that. But marketing wise, I think it's kind of like a interesting twist there.
Yeah, it's like it's got a novelty to it, and I think too for I think more for luxury brands, because there is this community that's being built in the metaverse. I think luxury brands, just from an IP perspective, we're sort of stuck, that they've got to get in there and they've got to trademark and register and have this plan for this sort of other space, whether they wanted to or not. I think some of them, like Chanel, has sort of begrudgingly got a TikTok and then has never used it. So I think some of these brands are sort of stuck into it. Maybe Gucci's just going to be the one who kind of opens up a space. But I think, to your point, it's kind of are you kind of driving the physical sale then, or trying to get the new customer kind of enticed by this
I think
novelty?
That's exactly what it is. It's like you're trying to, make sure that customer is there from the get-go. Maybe they're like, I don't know, whoever is playing this game, let's say it's like 15-year-old or something.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Sorry for those fans of Roblox, but let's say that's what's happening, right? Like, you're sort of planting that seed, they're using those digital clothes, I guess. And then eventually, they move into the real world where you may need those Gucci clothes, I guess, for whatever reason. But yeah, that's when I think us, in the supply chain world, we are like more excited about that part, I think. So, but yeah, we do need, we can't live without the marketing. I think that's sort of in there. So without the
It's
marketing,
true.
there can be sales. Without the sales, we can't ship. So
yeah, and I think the key is to make sure when your marketing team is doing things that you are sort of aware that it's happening in case you get,
yes,
they do
this
some sale in the metaverse that then leads to some increase on a particular stock item that's actually physical. So it'll
we'll
be
need a
interesting
full
because
hour
those
for that,
silos, right?
Audrey. Let's not go there into marketing and supply chain people, because
It's always an interesting conversation or lack of
yes.
conversation between those two departments.
What do you mean no
For
stock?
sure. Yeah. Especially in this supply chain. Oh my gosh, getting stock
Yeah.
and stuff in quickly. Oh, it's nuts. So that's a great article to check out. Just for the novelty, it seems like a lot of the people chiming in today aren't really kind of immersed yet in that metaverse or in that Web3. But it's like I think we can all see that on some level it's coming, and we're going to have to sort of choose how we participate. Let's look at the article on. Well, this is a good one. Stressed out supply chain managers. So the article is stressed out supply chain managers are throwing in the towel. And that one's coming in from Daniela Cortina here. So it's supply chain managers quit their jobs last year at the highest rate since at least 2016. And it's sort of a combination of burnout and a desire for better paychecks. So there's sort of this high rate of turnover aligns with, of course, the escalation of our supply chain problems, because this is not happening in a vacuum. So we're seeing, I think through the pandemic, overall, we've seen a lot of sort of labor shifts and employment shifts, and people sort of deciding, if they weren't loving what they were doing, then they're going to kind of, it's the time to kind of figure out what you love doing and go and do it. I think we've seen a lot of retirements, sort of in that senior executive level, especially in supply chain, because it just got very expensive. It got very hard. There just was not a lot of wins. Sort of everything was late. So it's interesting to see the numbers on this kind of out of Bloomberg. What do you think about these labor changes and this market shift?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, anybody that is at work right now, and not only supply chain managers, I will say, but like the fact that inflation has gone up, and the salaries haven't been keeping up, and there's a really good, I guess I would say, it's a really good time for people to switch jobs if they want a bigger salary, for sure, because there's a lot of positions that are being open, and I think they also mentioned the amount of turnover, right, in this role. So definitely stress will probably played a big role on what's happening in the last 2 years, but also those retirements that happen, and then eventually we still need new people in supply chain. So I mean, as much as I think, yeah, this may be a problem for companies, it's good for those looking for jobs that are in supply chain management, that are like maybe potentially going to get a job that maybe they would have to wait a few years to get in. So I think that's it's a good job market, I would say, for sure. But yeah, in terms of retention, if you're in a company and you are in the HR department, really consider your retention policies, and look at what you could do to make sure you keep your employees. Sometimes it's not only money, sometimes it's other things. Vacation time or better benefits. There's a lot of different ways to maintain. I would suggest, if you don't know what your employees want, just survey them, see what they like. Maybe they like, no Fridays, or maybe they like an extra week of vacation, or because sometimes, when you get that raise, depending on which state or which province or which country you are in, right, those raises, they give you X amount, and then because a lot of that goes back to taxes, you're not really getting a lot of money. Sometimes the extra week off might be a better way to support your employees, or more flexible hours. I know that flexibility now is probably in all jobs anyway, so But yeah, think about that. It's not all about money, but it's also about money.
That's the thing. It's like you want to know that people are able to pay their bills, and I think anyone can sit down and take a calculator and be like, okay, if rent has gone up X amount, and a phone bill is approximately this much money, like what the kind of the standard is, and then it's like you're paying short of that. Yeah, it's about money. So figure that one out. But I think too, like what you're saying about sort of alternatives, I think as well in our industry, there's been a lot of digital transformations. And I think while we're seeing, Sarah and I have talked about this on episodes before, where it's like you have so much access now in your smartphone to be able to manage your life. And then when you get to a job and it's still Post-its and Excel spreadsheets and printing, you're like, what? And so I think this article has a little reference to that supply chain managers now are looking at firms where it's like, do you have better tools than what I've been working with? Because I don't want to do clunky stuff that's data entry. I want to be able to do sort of higher level problem solving because that's what the market is demanding. And at the same time, you want me to do that. You also want me to do all of this data entry and kind of lack of automated options or lack of AI integration. And people are kind of making that choice as well. So it's saying, one of the quotes in here is kind of like they're less likely to go to a firm that has outdated systems or outdated in general processes because they don't want to be stressed out and they know that that is a factor.
Unless, if that were to happen, let's say that gets presented to you, at least find out for how long you have to do it. Like if it's a 3-month period where the transition is happening and maybe you're part of that transition, I think that will be a good role to take, right? Because you're learning how to do that skill of transitioning from old to new. And then you get to use the new system and make your life a little bit easier. And then you can concentrate on like the real stuff, like the strategic stuff, right? Like I think that automating stuff is okay if it's something that is very, very repetitive and it's like something that you don't really need to control too much. But you're paying someone a salary, they should be really thinking about strategic ways of doing better ways of doing things, right? So
yeah, optimizing and efficiencies, especially as there's talk of a recession now. So I know there's talk. There's always talk. People get very excited.
Don't say the word, Audrey.
So our last article today is one we don't want to miss, and it's one you and I, like I'm sure you experience this quite a bit with some of the clients that you interact with, and especially I don't think it's a Canadian issue, but it seems to be a lot of Canadian companies are very beginner at their digital, and a lot of companies and small businesses. So you and I have both sort of interacted with SMEs and micro businesses here. They don't have websites. They might not have even a social media presence. Like somehow they're selling to sort of their usual kind of customers and not really making that investment. So this article goes into sort of what a study of 1,500 companies, and it found that only 60% have a website and only 34% of those are analyzing any customer data. So yeah, what do you think so far?
To get to a point where you want to be able to do that analysis and all that, yes, you have to invest quite a bit of money. So I think that budget is that big barrier for a lot of companies. But there are ways to be, digital that are almost free, I will say. Like, there's social media already. If a company doesn't have social media, I think that's one point they're missing a lot. And that could be like your start. You don't have to go and build a $500,000 website, e-commerce website, or anything like that. You could start slow and small, be known, because a lot of your new clients will probably come from social media, right? That would be the new users of your products or purchasers, right? So I think that if the company, we're all here in social media, so I will assume that a lot of you or a small business do have some presence. But if you know of companies that do not have, it may be that the person that is running the business is not too familiar with social media, or they really don't know how to use it. And those will be sort of the new SMEs that are going to come in. And so if you're in the marketing sector, I guess, you could probably try to find ways to reach to those. And obviously don't come up with like $100,000 marketing investment, because that's not going to happen. But start small, because that's how you get your client, and you can start building a relationship. and eventually they will trust you a lot that when they are able to pay for the big bucks of implementing like a website or marketing strategy, or even like just simple things like what do you call this, newsletters, right? The common email. But in order to do that, you like even the company itself has to be able to collect that email. So like if you are doing everything like manually with like a point of sale that is not connected to the internet, let's say, you won't be able to get that email, right? So you have to maybe update some of the tools you have there, maybe using like new technologies, like I think that the iPhone now or even the Android, they can take payments, and I think that's one of the ways that maybe companies are going to be able to move more into the digital world and be able to start collecting the data from for the clients and really analyze when do they sell better, what kind of products they sell, which ones are better, leaving better profit margins or whatever. So I think, it will take a while, but it does not surprise me when I was looking at the article too, that there's a lot of companies that do not have the presence.
Yeah. And I think maybe there's a focus too. Everyone sort of expects that you have to have the traditional, right? You get the website, you have this marketing. And one of the stats that I love in here is that Indigenous and companies owned by younger people were more likely to fall into the digitally advanced category.
Yes.
And that's probably because they're looking at what's right in front of them, which is the stuff like TikTok and Instagram that is free to register. And then you have to have a certain amount of followers maybe to access like the shop tools. But those kinds of sort of very low access tools, I think, sort of the next generation is really taking advantage of, and sort of displacing maybe people who think it's like, oh, I have to have this very formal strategy and this very expensive, or I have to match what larger companies are doing. And I think there's a space to be sort of a maverick and use those free tools as long as you can, and that'll get you growing.
And a lot of the companies can look at potential funding, right? That it's available at different levels, right? So sometimes companies try to go to like a federal level funding that they're not really eligible for, and then they get discouraged. But there's a lot of municipal and regional funding that sometimes applies to startups or businesses that are not as large, let's say. And I will say, always go to those first. They have a lot of ways to help companies, especially if you have a store like a mortar brick store, where you can actually support like the local economy. Sometimes cities wants to promote those stores, and then they come up with different programs, marketing programs, let's say, or maybe like a funding program that can help you with your marketing. So I think going to it's very important to be mindful of the legibility of the program. That's what I used to tell people when I used to handle those programs, right? Like always read the legibility. Don't just apply because you're going to apply, you're not going to get the money, and then you're going to be frustrated. Look at the eligibility, and if you're eligible, then apply. And if you have questions before applying, because the programs they take a long time sometimes to go through the application process and everything. So call them. Because if you're going to invest, let's say 5-6 hours of your time to submit something that you're not going to be eligible, or you may not really have the chance because your project specifically is not what they want to fund, then it's good to investigate. In Canada, we have a tool called the Business Benefit Finder, and you can put in your store or business profile. And as you're answering the questions, right, like they ask you how many employees you have, like, are you a woman-led business? Like, there's so many different factors, right? And then it spits out a list of programs that are available. I'm sure that in other markets, this this type of tool exists. So make sure that you check those out if you're looking for funding and being maybe potentially able to apply to new marketing tools or update your business, right? Systems, etc.
Nice. All right. Well, we are out of time, so we've got to go. But thank you so much for being here. I think we had sort of a great round of articles. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Happy Pride Month. And thanks, everyone, and we'll see you soon.